Yeah, great. Hello, my name is host Eric, and I am the host of Talking with Famous People. And today I am very pleased to have as a guest one Tim, and I will indicate right off the outset here that we're going to be on a bit of a less casual or leisurely progression because I do have somebody waiting. So I'm going to put a timer on for 15 minutes for this interview. And Tim, I will of course encourage all the guests to come back and do it again if you don't feel like you got everything out or you just feel like it or whatever. So 15 minutes starts now. I know nothing about this individual here except that I believe he's the one who commented a very interesting comment about the relationship between intuition and placement along the autism spectrum. Was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's just some observations that I made. This is odd. I'm not used to looking at myself. But yeah, it's just throughout my own observations and with MBTI and just different experiences with different people on the spectrum and things of that nature. It's
Well, I think the whole idea of an autism spectrum. I mean, obviously there are some individuals who are autistic to the extent that they are special education, and I've worked with such
yeah,
people.
yeah,
I've worked with
most
such
definitely.
yeah, I've worked with such people for sure. But for those who are cognitively non-impaired, who are identified as being on that spectrum, it seems to be sort of a deep bias in favor of certain functions over others within society. You know, that's viewed as a handicap of sorts.
Yeah, I totally agree with that analysis of what the general population would view as less than, whereas in other people may perceive it as just different. That's kind of how I look at things.
So when you
'Cause we all
have you
go ahead.
been looking into cognitive functions stuff for a while now?
Um, I came across the MBTI probably about 8 years ago. A friend of mine gave me a book, one of Kiersey's books actually, and I resonated with it quite a lot. And at that time, I was more or less trying to understand myself, at the same time trying to understand other people. Um, my own type that I would resonate with would be an INTP. Being an INTP, I'm open to quite a few possibilities.
Yeah.
I don't really like to narrow things down, to be honest, because there's just infinite possibilities of the way you can perceive things.
Right.
But, looking at, the MBTI really kind of, in the descriptions, it's very much a behavioral description. And, yeah, absolutely, especially in my past, in my youth, I'm in my 40s now, but looking back in my childhood or even especially early 20s and so forth, I definitely fit a lot of the stereotypes. But, as we get older, we start developing more functions, learning from other people, and so forth. I would honestly, a big thing for me is I've been married for nearly 20 years, and my wife is an INFJ.
Oh, you
So,
lucky son of a bitch! You lucky fucking son of a bitch! You know how hard it is to find INFJ chicks? It's like impossible.
there's not a whole lot out there, but when you do find them, it's interesting. It's definitely been an interesting journey. But we just clicked right off the bat whenever we did meet. We were both in our young to mid-20s, and it just worked out. But being an INFJ, she's all about her spiritual path and her development of herself, and I've learned a lot of that along the way, especially interacting with her when her primary is in introverted intuition,
Right.
which is quite a bit different than myself.
Well,
But it gives me a whole different perspective.
have you looked
Go
into
ahead.
the socionics intertype relationships at all?
I have not, to be honest. I'm aware of socionics, but I haven't really delved into it. So it's when I learned about MBTI, I looked in, I started with that, and that led me to cognitive functions with the Jungian function types and so forth. And being who I am, instead of looking at what everybody else thinks, I have to delve into what I think about it. So therefore, I went into the cognitive functioning deeper and deeper, and as the time goes by, it just keeps going deeper and deeper. Because me, the whole underlying aspect of who I am is I ask the question why.
Right. Yeah.
So
Well.
therefore, the cognitive functions give me a pathway to seek that answer of, well, it's not really an answer, but possibilities of why.
An INTP, this chart here says your perfect ideal match. It has this duality thing. Your dual is. Where's your dual? DLT. Your dual is ESFP. That's supposedly a type that they say you should get with, but INFJ for you, it says is. All right. Well, they'll have the I's backwards, so it'll be INFP then on this.
Honestly, I find a lot of the different types very intriguing because everybody's unique in and of themselves. But me personally, it's fun to be around some sensory type people, but don't always click there.
Well, we see things through a fundamentally different perspective, right? At their core, they are pragmatic in a way that we are not, which is to say, they don't see things as useful unless they have use, and we see things as useful for potential use, or just because they're interesting. So this is what Socionic says about your relationship with your wife. It says these are relations of mutual respect between partners. Superego partners may think of each other as a distant and slightly mysterious ideal. They often show interest in each other's manners, behavior, and thought composition. Both partners experience a warm feeling towards each other, but for the outsider, these relations look cold. Superego partners cannot find common interests. Their interactions can become very formal. Partners normally think more about expressing their own point of view than listening to their partner. This expression comes from the confident side of one of the partners reaching the unconfident side of the other partner. The latter tries to defend themselves by projecting their confident points in return. Partners normally show interest and respect to each other if they do not know each other well enough. When partners get more close, they start experiencing many problems. They may think they understand each other well. However, when it comes to day-to-day matters or cooperative activities, partners start thinking that their partner is deliberately trying to do everything wrong. Superego partners are not interested and do not make each other aware of their intentions. Therefore, their actions may look exactly opposite to what was expected. Although the huge end feeling between partners may remain as before, it does not prevent the conflicts from penetrating their relationship. When both partners are extroverts, one of them usually feels more unsatisfied with their position. The explanation for this is that they both believe the other partner does not pay as much attention to them as they should, and they are both occupied with their own matters. Between two introvert partners, one is always thinks about the other as being too obtrusive and clingy. In any case, friction usually begins when partners shift to a more close relationship. That's what it says about your relationship. What do you think about that analysis? Is that accurate to you?
I think from a youthful standpoint, perhaps. We've been together for nearly 20 years now,
Right.
and the process of that has greatly changed.
You've turned into a single INFJTP.
Well, it's interesting because where we actually connect now is, I guess you could say, would be more along the lines of common interests. But it's not really a common interest and an outward interest. It's very much an intellectual interest. Whereas, being myself, I have a lot of different interests and they change periodically throughout the year. But just in general, when we were first together, I think there was a big breakdown because, she is a J and I'm a P. I don't finish anything. I have all the ideas, but I don't ever follow through. Whereas in her youth, she was very much about the follow through, and it's kind of the other way around. Is she's learned a lot of ways to interact with the P, and in a lot of ways has adopted a lot of that, a lot of those processes. Because being a J, she was very result oriented, whereas not so much anymore.
I think it switches as you get older. I think they become less result oriented, and we become more result oriented as we get older.
Oh, exactly, and that's that interaction where, in all honesty, that introverted intuition, which wouldn't be one of my primary functions, I believe I've been able to explore that and learn a lot about that, and even at times apply that. And at those times, I may not appear like an INTP, those meditative times and so forth. Maybe I could say that sometimes I could play the role of an INFJ, but I'm really not.
Right.
But I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about them, and I could appreciate them.
What's interesting to me is you identify, as is said to be the case, that most types identify really most with their second function. You said all kinds of extroverted intuition shit here. You're like, I don't like to finish shit. I don't want to be tied down to shit. I don't want to create like. But that's typical because we use that. We use that. We are like, I am extroverted intuition, but I use thinking. So until I really knew about this a lot, I would have definitely identified myself as TI first. Oh yes, I'm a thinker. But now I realize.
Well, it's going to greatly, with me personally, I definitely, when I'm interacting with other people, it's almost like an extroverted side comes out. So therefore, if I'm speaking with you one-on-one, oftentimes people, if they were to understand the types, they probably would type me as an ENTP. But realistically, when I look back at my life and everything of that nature, I'm definitely an INTP, but I guess you could say maybe I could play that part a little bit as well. And I don't know, maybe that's with the maturing aspect that I talked about in my comment about developing the FE a little bit more. Because when I was younger, that really didn't even come into play. I really didn't care.
Right.
And
you are Zach in 20 years.
Perhaps, it's. I've watched a few of your videos. Yeah, I definitely understand, and it kind of makes me laugh because I think about it as like, yeah, I've been there. It's interesting. I've come across not too many personally in personal connections with INTPs, but I have come across a few in my life, and they have all been much younger than me, and I can see myself in them, where I used to be, and it's when I've learned not to try to be the you should do this, do that, and just sit back and go, oh, okay.
Well, Zach's advanced, man, for a freaking 18-year-old INTP. I don't think most INTPs are that far along at 18, personally.
No, I was actually surprised when I heard his age. I was thinking young 20s. So, yeah, it's I wasn't at that age.
But here's the other thing. We were at a disadvantage because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the internet.
It's true.
It's true. Makes a big fucking difference.
Works for NTPs well.
Oh, hell yeah.
Our thirst for knowledge, it's insane.
And for like-minded people, because, I grew up here in a well-to-do area of Southern California. I went to a nice, very well-funded public school. And yet, even so, I was swimming in sensors.
Yeah, I grew up in a very small community, so high school. It was a junior and senior high, so like 7th through 12th grade, we had maybe 600 people. So you got to think, how many INs are going to be in 600 people? Not very many.
60.
And then
60
at that time, I didn't know who I was.
60 NTs out of 600, and we didn't know about Myers-Briggs cognitive function shit either. If I had learned about this when I was young, like, I would have been like, okay, this is a tool I can use for all sorts of sort of shit, You got a minute and a half left. You have a minute and a half left on this first interview. Obviously, welcome to come back and do a second one. You're fascinating to talk with. Take the last minute and a half. Say any thoughts you might have.
Oh, I don't have anything prepared. I kind of.
That's the funny thing, right? It's like as long as I'm just talking to you and you are being TI, you're using NE left and right, right?
Oh, I know.
But as soon as I'm like, here, B and E, you're like, no. In ENTP, if you say, here's 2 minutes, they'll go, they're just like, boom. That's the difference.
If we're talking about a specific topic, I could talk and talk and talk, and it's probably going to go off on tangents left and right. But, it's more like I've learned to chill out.
Right.
So,
they say we're hard to tell apart. because INTPs, when they're interested in something and on, are very ENTP-ish. Like my
Mm-hmm.
former partner at the debate school, she was state champion debater, and when she was debating, there was nothing remotely introverted seeming about her at all.
No, exactly.
She was just up there tearing people to pieces.
Yeah, that can very much happen. Like I said, in my youth, yeah, I would be a lot more of a debater, and I was always the devil's advocate, and that's where a lot of misconceptions of people would come into play with me, is because they kept thinking that what I'm talking about I actually believe.
I know
Of course
it's a
not.
common
That's
problem.
insane.
Well, that's a good stopping point. That's 15 minutes. The bell rang, and if you
All right.
feel like sticking around for another 15 minutes, you can. If you want to just try it on another day or another occasion, that's fine too. Whatever you prefer. I'm gonna stop this video, and I'm gonna get Tim up. I'm sorry, waiting for name. I'm gonna get waiting for name up in the mix here, and I'll follow up with you shortly.